Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review. I don't like wearing this coffee for every time I start a video, but uh, this is Joe again with another movie review. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to be discussing the last of the Lethal Weapon movies, which came out in 1998, 6 years after the last one, called Lethal Weapon 4. But this movie, the reason why it took him 6 years is because I think maybe because both Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, I think more Danny Glover than Mel Gibson, was getting tired of doing these movies. And I can't blame him because as I said in the third movie, this bit of the Riggs Mortalk thing was getting pretty silly, pretty bland, same old routine, same stupid routines all over again, in a way. And I was getting tired of it. So when it came to the fourth movie, this really was the last Lethal Weapon film, and it's kind of a surprise that the movie ended at such a down note. I mean, it did have a bunch of action in it. It does have not the greatest story in the world, but a decent one. But the problem is that it's the same routine all over again. This time you have a bunch of criminals this time. And instead of being there weren't any drug runners in this movie like in the first two, or a gun runner like in the last film. This time it's like Chinese smugglers in this film, with the main bad guy being Jet Li, who was a famous karate martial artist. And those all the martial art movies were pretty popular, especially in the early 90s, in the 80s and 90s, with like Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Norris, of course, and of course you have Jet Li, and he moves so damn, and of course Jackie Chan. I forgot to mention Jackie Chan. Jet Li moves so damn fast they had to keep telling him to slow it down. I think Richard Donner directed this one as he did the whole series, Lethal Weapon series. He kept telling Jet Li to slow down, don't move so fast, because they couldn't capture him. He moved so fast they couldn't capture him on camera. Because that's how fast Jet Li moved, and he was the main villain, and he was of course involved with all these Chinese smuggling and counterfeit money and stuff like that, and making counterfeit Chinese money, as well as within the. When I mean by Chinese smuggling, I don't mean smuggling in drugs or guns or other kind of weapons. They smuggle in people. They come into the United States illegally, so they smuggle them in to do these jobs that white Americans, who the same crap, instead of being Mexicans, it was Chinese. The same type of stuff that people won't hire white, or the whites are too good for to do. The stupid stereotype to keep the illegals in the United States. They did that even that time. And this was 20 years ago when this movie came out. They did that bit. So that's what the main villain is. And they did have some great action sequences in this, especially the chase with this mobile home. When the home was being moved, they had a great action scene there. Also had a great action scene in Chinatown, where they're running on the rooftops, and one of the best lines came out of that scene. Which they should mention that they added not only Jet Li as the main villain, but they also added as a new good guy in the franchise, Chris Rock as a cop. And in that sequence when they had this big chase scene in Chinatown, and Chris Rock captured one of the guys, he had his gun on him, and he says, "And if you hide Johnny Cochran, I'm going to kill you." Actually, of course, in reference to the OJ thing. And she also mentioned this thing that not only is Chris Rock the newest cast member in the Lethal Weapon franchise, even though this was the only time he was in a Lethal Weapon film, because this was, like I said earlier, the last one. He married Murtaugh's daughter in this film, which he didn't see, and they tried to give him a hush-hush from Murtaugh, because it was one of the main subplots, and this was the longest movie in terms of time in the whole Lethal Weapon franchise. It was like, I think it was like 2 hours and 15 minutes, which is like the longest one in terms of time. and it shows. I mean, this movie dragged on because they had so many subplots and all over the place. That Chris Rock married, unbeknownst to Murtaugh, on the Mel Gibson on the Danny Glover character, that he didn't know that his daughter was married to Chris Rock, who was a cop, because he did not want his daughter to marry another cop. Meanwhile, she did behind his back, and of course he found out about it, and he actually, of course, wasn't too happy about it. And not only that, but not only was his daughter pregnant, or Rianne, the oldest daughter in the movie franchise, not only was she pregnant, but Renee Russo's character was also pregnant, who came back. And she was about the only woman who came back for a second time. I mean, other than Murtaugh's wife, who was played by Darlene Love, she was in all four of the films. But there was the only woman who was involved with Mel Gibson, Mel Gibson's character Riggs in the series, to come back. Because like I mentioned in my Lethal Member 2 review, that Patsy Kensi's character was the first real love interest for Riggs, was killed off by the South African drug dealers. So she was the only, Renee Russo's character was the only one who, survived, came back a second time. And knowing when she was pregnant, but Rianne was pregnant as well. So you had two pregnancies going on at the same time. Of course, we all know what happens. They both give birth at the end of this movie. Of course, the other thing that also became annoying, you had that bit where they didn't want to marry, or Mel Gibson didn't want to marry somebody again because of what happened with his first wife. So he was very reluctant to marry Renee Russo's character, even though she says she was okay with not getting married. We all know that was bullshit. She wanted to get married, and Mel Gibson said no. But of course, which became unbelievably ironic was when Renee Russo's character became pregnant. Of course, obviously she was pregnant before the movie started. When she gave birth, she wanted to be married before she gave birth. She didn't have an illegitimate kid. So, Leo Getz, who was once again played by Joe Pesci, which is another annoying part of this film, he goes out to get somebody to marry them. And the only person he could find was the hospital chaplain who was a rabbi. And which is, you can laugh about it now because we all know how anti-Semitic Mel Gibson is, especially when he's drunk as a skunk. To have a rabbi marry him, I mean, it was kind of hugely ironic now, and hugely funny now. And so they did that bit in the end. And of course, at the end of the movie, says when they had the doctor take a group picture of the whole cast, including Murtaugh's three kids, his new grandchild. Because Rianne also gave birth in the same day, and of course the captain, I forgot who played the captain through the whole four movies. He came, and of course Joe Pesci was there, and of course Renee Russo's character, of course. When they had a whole big group picture at the end of the film, and they said, "Oh, you friends?" I said, "No, we're a family. We're a family. There's huge, big extended family." And technically, that's how the whole series ended. But with the full, it looks like they had like a full montage for not only the fourth one, but all the other films. But this one was like the silliest and the dumbest one. Starting off with the opening teaser sequence, which had nothing to do with the rest of the film, with this guy who was like Firefly, or a guy from the Batman comic mythos, with a guy who's in like a gasoline suit with a flamethrower setting stuff on fire, and to distract the guy, Riggs had the idea of Murtaugh stripping down to his underwear and doing like a chicken dance or something. And being like, seriously? I don't mind any of you guys out there, but the last person I want to see in their underwear is Danny Glover. And that's the last one I want to see in their underwear. Or any guy, really. But was really ridiculous and really silly and really pointless. And then of course there was like Riggs, Joe Pesci's character, Leo and Riggs and Murtaugh on Murtaugh's boat, and they collided with a big cargo ship that was smuggling the Chinese, and that's how the movie actually got started. And Murtaugh's got they bonded with this little kid. His father was killed, whose father gets killed later on in the film by Jet Li's character, and it was really, really long. Like I said, this movie was really long. Like one of the goofy characters in the show was a guy who was in cahoots. He wasn't like the top guy, but was like the top gangster in Chinatown. The guy was named Uncle Benny, who owned a Chinese restaurant. And of course, the biggest scene, that was like the most annoying and pointless scene in the whole damn thing, was when Uncle Benny was in the dentist, and Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, and Chris Rock break into the office, and they distract the dentist, and they use Leo Getz and Joe Pesci to distract the dentist while they could interrogate Uncle Benny in the dentist's office. And you know how they get the information? They use it, of course, in the dentist's office. What do you find in the dentist's office? But nitrous oxide, laughing gas. So they dope Uncle Benny up in laughing gas, and Mel Gibson's holding the the gas mask and gas that's hooked up to the tank, and he kept his thumb or his finger on the button, releasing the gas through the mask. And of course he's holding up let's say I'm holding up, let's say this is the mask, I'm holding my phone, and the gas is coming out like here on the phone, and all four of them got hooked on the laughing gas, and they all started busting out laughing, of course. And it was like one of the longest laughing gas scenes ever. And that's when the scene where Danny Glover finds out that Chris Rock was his son-in-law. And he goes, yo, and I think this clip is on YouTube, the laughing gas scene from Lethal Weapon 4. I think that is on YouTube. He goes, your baby is having my baby. I mean, it was really a dumb, pointless ass scene. And of course, I know I didn't point this out that much yet, but bringing in Leo Getz, bringing in Joe Pesci again for the third time in the Lethal Weapon series, because Joe Pesci was in every movie in the series except for the first one. He was not in it, but he brought him again for the third time. I mean, his character was really, really, really pointless. I mean, I like Joe Pesci. He was very good, especially when he does comedy and stuff. For My Cousin Vinny and the other Lethal Weapon films and stuff. I don't have anything against the guy, but his character was really pointless, and it was really, really was annoying in the fourth film. And of course, in this one, he became a private investigator because of all of his dealings with Riggs and Murtaugh. But he did have one very, very good scene that was very, very serious scene. It wasn't played for laughs. That he had spoke to Riggs in the cemetery, because Riggs was in the cemetery where his wife was buried. He said to his wife's grave, and he was saying, "Oh, I met a new woman. I'm sorry I haven't been able to visit you. Yada yada yada. And I met a new woman. I love her. I think I'm marrying her, but I'm not, sure if I should or not, because it would be disrespectful to you and all that stuff." And then that's when Joe Pesci shows up, and he gave Mel Gibson, I think, like the best advice he could give somebody, because he tells this whole story about he had no friends when he was a kid. His parents were neglectful were lousy to him, and he had like a pet frog, and he was like his best friend. Took him everywhere with him, and it was like the only friend he had in the world, really. And was one particular day when he accidentally ran over the frog with his bike, and he was really upset over that stuff. And then he goes on, and then I never had another friend in my life until I met you and Roger. And you became my friends, and you became my you guys are like family to me, and you went above and beyond and protected me back then. All those years ago when you protected me, in the second film. Even though he didn't mention the second film, but that's when they first met him. And you went above and beyond and protected me, and even though it was a pain in the ass to you guys, you went above and beyond, and you just I know you cannot replace Froggy. That's how I named the Frog. I know you can't replace Froggy in my heart, but you're just different. You're not the same, you're just different friends. And maybe that's what, Sergeant Cole is to you. She cannot replace your first wife, but she's there for you. She loves you. And all that stuff. And then that's what Mel Gibson says in decides to officially marry her. But then you had all those hijinks in the hospital, the rabbi, which I previously mentioned. But I thought that was some damn good advice that Joe Pesci gave, and one of the best scenes that that Joe Pesci ever gave out. Because most of the time, very few times that Joe Pesci gives a real serious scene like that. Because he usually does comedy and usually use the F word constantly, in his roles. So there's one of the few times in Joe Pesci's acting career that he got a down and dirty, serious, no bullshit scene, and also no cursing scene as well, to Mel Gibson or anybody in his movies really. And it was really, really, really a good scene that Joe Pesci gave. A good dialogue scene for Joe Pesci in that particular scene. But other than that, once again, like in the other two films, Joe Pesci did a FU scene, the FU of the hospital, or the FU of this. This time, in the fourth movie, you knew they was going to do the FU in the hospital scene, or the FU in the drive-thru scene in this movie. This time, he picked on cell phones. The FU in the cell phone. First, and they make them smaller, and all this type of thing. But, there was the real sad part, because you knew that joke and that bit was coming in this film. But as the film itself, it is a nice ending for the whole series, even though I felt like this was like the weakest one out of the four. But it was a decent ending to the franchise, and the franchise only had 4 films in it. So that's my review of Lethal Weapon 4, and thankfully the end of the Lethal Weapon movie series. And in case you're wondering, I am not going to review the Lethal Weapon television show because I think it's crap. Right? So don't look for me to do a Lethal Weapon TV series review, because I'm not doing it. I haven't seen enough episodes to really. It's only like the first episode, and it was there for me. It was terrible. So I'm not doing it. So that's my review of Lethal Weapon 4. Please click on the video. Please rate it. Feel free to comment on it. Please subscribe to my channel, and please forward this video on your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews now on my YouTube channel at rowdyc.com. There's OWDY, that's C.com. Homepage and Rowdy Reviewer, Chris Lee Moore, and please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.